Hello everybody and welcome to this digital studio episode as part of the Edge Summit 2024 here in London. My name is Manuel and I'm delighted to be joined by two of the industry experts today here at this panel where we are talking about conversational commerce. With me is Graham Wilson, the Director of Omnichannel for Bensons for Beds, and Mark Adams, General Manager from BigCommerce EMEA. Well, conversational commerce obviously is definitely a thing of the day. It's really in every outlet, in every news, in every podcast, people are talking about that. So first of all, I think, Mark, you see a lot currently in the market. You work with a lot of e-commerce companies. How do you see that the AI and specifically the Gen AI has changed the landscape here? And how do you see that it's continuing to change the landscape in the next couple of years?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big impact certainly is around search and personalization, isn't it? Large language models coming into play, and Gen AI has just exploded that, really, when you think now that those models have been trained on the entire internet's data, and that's why we're able to create more relevance with these models and ultimately then better use cases for the customer. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be in e-commerce, actually. Gen AI and AI generally is powering lots of new capabilities for retailers, creating more efficiency, as well as helping and supporting, conversion and growth. So yeah, it's cool to be in tech at the moment, isn't it?
Well, I think it was always cool to be in tech, not only at the moment. But yeah, I think it's very, very interesting what you just said, efficiency. So basically, when we apply AI, it has to be answering at least one of two questions, being more effective, more efficient, or making more money. So Graham, over to you. I think you already apply certain things of this whole Gen AI, some conversational stuff, or you're going into this area. So I always love, it's not our first time we're having a chat together. I always love in Bensons for Bed, you call your sales associates in your store sleep experts.
Yeah, that's right.
So how do you make one of these conversational commerce pieces a sleeping expert in the future?
I mean, so for us, if you think about the market that we're in, it's a considered purchase. It's low frequency, so therefore customers don't really know a huge amount about what they're looking to buy because they're not shopping the category that often. So for us, and especially with digital, it's all about trying to help educate the customer and get them in the mindset of where the latest products are, where the latest technologies are, and actually trying to understand what problems they've got with their sleep, hence the sleep experts, so that we can then help that customer get a better night's sleep, which is ultimately our purpose. Digitally, we still do that through content, we still do that through helping them with search and making search more relevant, but equally more and more now what we're trying to do is guide that customer through the journey. So using things like Gen AI to prompt, but equally to kind of help nudge that customer to the next step of their journey. And that doesn't just necessarily mean purchase. That can be, how can we tell that customer that actually the next best thing for them is to go into one of our stores and have a conversation with one of our sleep experts. That's the way that we try and build trust and credibility online, so that then if that customer ever comes back because they've not purchased in store, they're more likely to buy from us in the future.
So listening to you basically see this as part, the conversational commerce piece, as one new piece in the whole customer journey in a certain way.
Yeah, I think it's integrated into the customer journey, right? So I don't think this is about having a separate capability that says, hey, I'm a virtual sales assistant, right? How can I help you? This is about, as that customer naturally flows through the funnel and goes through the various different stages that they are at, they get prompted, they get nudged, and we present in context the information that we need. This, for me, isn't about having like a one-size-fits-all, everybody gets the same chatbot type experience. This is about embedding it within core elements of our customer journey. So whether that's search, whether that's PDPs, whether that's in checkout, wherever that right place is, that's where I see this kind of working.
Yeah, it's also the right moment. So that
I think as well. And you're doing a great job on the own channel at the moment with Bloomreach's product and Gen AI generally and chatbots. But I think that the use cases are far wider than that. They are in non-owned channels. You think about marketplaces, think about social, think about messaging platforms. Wherever the customer is, wherever the customer wants to interact with a brand or a retailer, this is where these types of tools and technologies should be used, because then you get a consistent experience across those channels, and the customer begins to trust the interaction more and more as they do it at every part of the funnel.
Yep.
So I think this is where the biggest explosion is really going to be. It's not just the own channel, the own digital channel. It's offline. It's in the store.
Yep.
And it's wherever the customer is interacting with the brand.
Okay.
And I was going to say, just to add to that, I think that's absolutely spot on. And I think, it's also how we can use this kind of technology to help our colleagues in store get better outcomes. So, using things like conversations that we can start through AI to almost figure out what the intent of that customer is at any moment in time. This doesn't have to be on your website. This can be in other channels. And then we can hand that information over to our colleagues who can then act on it and hopefully and ultimately give that customer the best experience that they need.
So basically you see the digital sleep expert as an extension of the actual physical one that is so they have a synergy, they work together. This is how you see it. Okay, that's interesting. But but when you think about Gen AI and the AI, Mark, we're talking a little bit about stuff like LLMs, of course, search and so forth. But when you look into basically taking a little bit the crystal ball and looking into it, where do you see what is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years the big change? We talk about conversational commerce, but do you have any other idea of where is going to be the big change in the next couple of years?
So my personal view on this type of interaction is it needs to be melded with the human experience, and the retailers and brands that do that better than others, not just rely on either human interaction or AI-based interactions, but blend the two, are going to provide a much better customer experience. I mean, automation, and you've just said it, in the stores, can you imagine? They've got access now to all of this information and this insight at real scale. They're going to be far more relevant in the conversations they're having. They can be more efficient. That's the real power that I think Gen AI can bring to a digital experience, and that will be truly game-changing. But of course, that requires not just technology change, but it requires business transformation as well. The business has got to go along with that change. Change has got to drive that change across its channels and across its employee base, and that's probably a bigger challenge than the implementing the technology itself.
But it's interesting, and maybe then coming from you, Graham, as a user of these technologies in the next couple of years. Mark just said a couple of things like efficiency, sales, basically amalgamation between physical store and digital sales. Where do you see the biggest value? In the end of the day, something has to cost less or make more money. But what is the nucleus of the value you see from these kind of technologies?
I think you summed it up a little bit earlier, which is there is the two sides to the coin, right? There is how can you drive more value from a growth perspective and actually give your customers a better experience so that then they're more likely to buy from you and you're driving conversion and average transaction value and all the metrics that you would look at on the front end. But then equally, I think the opportunity for us as retailers is how can we use Gen AI not only to be more efficient, but to be more effective. And by that, I mean things like, if we're producing content, this isn't necessarily about getting the Gen AI to write the content for us, but what it is about is how do you take the content you've got and make it better? How do you find the gaps? How do you find the things that customers are interested in and then use that insight to then improve your overall content experience on the site, as an example. Product catalogs are another piece, right? So we talk about making search more relevant, which ultimately helps grow the business. But equally, if we can automate the analysis of products and understand what attributes may be of interest to our customers, then actually we can start to augment and enrich our product catalog that way as well. Yeah. So I don't think there is one silver bullet to say this is going to be the big thing that explodes. I think it's just about how you see the proliferation of AI kind of through sort of day-to-day processes and day-to-day kind of operations within the team that you'll get some of the biggest benefits.
But just shifting the gears here for 1 second and maybe coming to a topic which is always a little bit on my mind is I always say everybody who was a blockchain expert 5 years ago is suddenly an AI expert right now when you go on LinkedIn. Sorry for if I'm a little bit a bad boy here, but sometimes it feels a little bit like that. So when you look at the whole AI modeling and how this is going to change, where do you see conversational commerce is going to be, the market will be flooded the next couple of years of that. But where do you see, what combination do we need? Do we just need a couple of LLMs which then are running around and give some answers? Or do we need a combination of certain things to be successful in this area?
I think one of the ways to answer this question is, well, what's the biggest challenge in implementing this? And in my experience, one of the bigger challenges, especially with the larger brands, was data security, access to data across different systems, data performance, and data accessibility. Many of the brands that in the past I've spoken to about this, well, we'll implement a large language model, but only on our own data. Well, the problem with that, I mean, even if you're Adidas or Puma or a really billion-dollar merchant doing lots of interactions online, it's still only being trained on your data. Whereas Gen AI now is being trained on the data of the whole internet, which is why it's so powerful. But a lot of larger customers don't want to give up that data. They don't want to make it accessible. The consumer has concerns about data accessibility and where their data's going. And so actually, because this can be implemented. You could roll that out. You could share the data. Bloomreach could share it across thousands of customers. But some of those larger customers in particular are going to say, well, where's my data going? Is it protected? Is it secure? I don't want my data being used by a competitor. Well, how does that affect
this conversation a week ago? So it's very, very interesting.
Yeah. I think the technology itself is there now. Yeah. It's proven. The implementation of it and some of these nuances are really where together as an industry we need to kind of address that, I think.
Yeah. Graham, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I'd agree. And look, some of the learnings that we've had through this process that we're going through at Bloomreach has definitely been around the quality of data that we're putting into it. And actually the quality of answer you get back almost tells you what you're missing and how you kind of need to add to that. But I think, we're in a competitive marketplace at the minute where we don't necessarily want to be sharing stuff with our competitors and giving them an edge. So, yeah, I think we certainly have conversations internally about, what are we using ChatGPT for example, how are other people, what data are we feeding into that? Because once it's in there, right? So no, look, definitely a lot of considerations there around sort of security to Mark's point, but equally, I echo the point around, these things are only as good as the information you give it. And you've got to invest in that, right? So, probably the big learning for me has been the amount of time it's taken us to teach and train and get the models to the place where we want them to be. That's not been an easy flick of a switch for us. Yeah. But that's the investment we've got to make if we want to make this great and we want to help our customers with it. So, I think there's a lot of learnings to be taken there.
It's interesting because I also think in a certain way, the combination for conversational commerce is not only that the system can have a conversation, but also when do I initiate the conversation? Like a sleeping expert, when do they approach a customer in the store? Is it when a customer is leaving the store, or is it when a customer is standing for more than 10 minutes in front of a bed? It's a combination, having the conversation and when to initiate the conversation.
So for us, that's absolutely right. I think, as I sort of suggested earlier, this isn't about having this available all the time. It's about understanding the true intent of your customers. I always like to use the example of how many people always say, well, you've got 3 products in your basket, therefore that customer must be about to purchase, right? Because they're at the basket and that's very, very close to pushing that checkout button. Actually, a lot of those customers that have got products in their basket are effectively either comparing, shortlisting, or just, they've got to a stage where actually they've just paused on their journey. So it's almost as powerful, therefore, to understand that that's the stage they're at, and therefore, actually, what do we need to show that customer to get them over the line? So some of those customers, yes, will be ready to purchase, so give them a little extra nudge from a promotional perspective, but equally, some of those customers will be, undecided. So therefore, how do we then educate that customer so that they can find out whether actually that product they've got is the right product? And I think intent is really the key word here. It's like, how do we truly understand the intent of a customer at that moment? And then how do we then tailor and personalize the journey to make it more appropriate as we kind of go forward?
Just because we were already talking a bit in our session before about stuff. How do you see the world? So somebody once said that the wisest sentence is "I don't know." And of course, you also have to teach an AI assistant a certain way that in a moment when you don't know, you have to say don't know. But you have to still be an expert. And if you always say I don't know, then of course you miss credibility. But if you say something wrong, then you also miss credibility. How do you balance these two things together?
I mean, again, this is a challenge that we've had, right? So we talked about in our stores the fact that we've got sleep experts. They're experts because they're knowledgeable, but they're also trusted by our customers because that's the relationship that they build up. From an AI perspective on the website, if it doesn't know the answer, it can either give wrong information, which we know colleagues in store might also do because they're humans, they're not perfect. Yeah. It can also say, I don't know, which is fine because actually if it's honest and it doesn't know the answer, it's almost better to say, I don't know, right? Or here's some way you might be able to find out, like call this number or whatever it might be. But if it keeps going, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know to every question, then it starts to lose its credibility, right? So it's really about, and I think that's where the learning comes in, right? And as retailers, trying to understand what your customers are asking of your products, therefore then you can make sure you've got the right data to support that. But yeah, that's another learning that we've kind of taken from this whole process is how do we ensure that what we're doing has the same levels of credibility and trust that a store colleague would have, because ultimately, if it loses that credibility, it might actually stop that customer from buying from us, and that's not really what we want. So,
I think it's much like you implement any technology, really. You don't just deploy it out in the wild across every channel to every customer on day one. You test and you learn and you iterate as you do when you implement any technology. And I think it's no different with conversational commerce. Actually, with conversational commerce, it kind of fits more into that kind of implementation choice and testing and learning because it doesn't need to be everywhere in the experience.
Yep.
It has far more relevance at certain points in the journey, and then you can deploy that on a limited number of customers, for example, on the site. You can test, you can iterate it, you can ask for feedback.
Yeah.
One of the things you can do in the interaction is, was that the right information?
Yep,
was
absolutely.
it helpful? Go and get that feedback and then take it and improve the algorithms on that basis. And the final point is, again, human interaction. Get humans looking at the data, looking at why the decisions on, with the AI is suggesting, does that make sense to a human? And then, have some kind of a playback mechanism to go and improve it. And that's why I think, melding both is always the right way to go.
As always in these digital studio moments, I think we could stay another half an hour here, but unfortunately we have to come to the conclusion. And I was thinking about asking the question about what are your experiences and how can you overcome certain challenges. But you already mentioned a couple when it comes down to training the model, getting your data in line. I think there are a couple of things. Therefore, I would actually ask you another question. And the thing is, how do I measure success? You knew it was coming. One of my favorite questions. How do you measure success of something like that? It's something new. It's something nobody was using so far. So do you measure it by conversion rate? Do you measure it by accessibility? What is the measuring mechanism that you can also read it and on the C-level say, hey, this was successful or this was not successful?
So for me, I think first and foremost, it's about understanding what problem you're trying to solve, right? Yeah. So what problem are you trying to solve through the capability that you're deploying? Once you understand that, for me, it's not about the kind of the big hero metrics like conversion, stuff like that. It's about those little micro conversions. So say, for example, your goal is on a PDP to get more customers to add to basket because you're seeing things there. Then you measure the success of what you're doing on the basis of that metric. Equally, if it's about kind of delivery to promise or making sure that product that customer has purchased fits in their bedroom, then again you measure delivery success as the driver. I don't think you talk about measuring AI. You talk about measuring the result of customer problems and the outcomes that you're trying to drive, right?
Absolutely. What I really like the concept around is how AI can make the whole experience better and using it in the right way. And I think it depends on the use case. And you measure it dependent on that use case. If you've got a customer service use case, particularly around chatbots and customer interaction, you're solving problems for a customer, measure customer satisfaction, get the feedback. That's probably, and that's not a massive hero metric, is it, that in terms of e-com? But if it's in checkout and you're implementing some kind of chatbot in the checkout to go and help a consumer check out, then very much a conversion metric is something you want to be looking at. Further up the funnel, when they're searching, they're browsing, and they're looking for products, are they finding relevance? And are they proceeding to the next part of the journey? That's the thing that you would measure. So I agree with Graham. There is no hero metric in this. It's about being smart about the problem you're trying to solve, and then creating the metrics that help you measure that.
So if I summarize a little bit our chat we had here. So first, find out what is your problem. What is the problem you want to solve? Find out what is the metric, or what is it on the PDP? Is it a customer service moment you want to solve? So find the micro conversion that is relevant to you. Then we were talking about this LLM, train the model, take time to train the model, because the more data, the better, and get your data in line. I think so to summarize these 4 points, what to measure and how to start. You're fine with that, Mark and Graham?
Yeah, that sounds a good summary.
Good
Perfect.
advice.
Guys, thank you very much for taking the time to be here in the digital studio of the Edge Summit 2024. I also would like to thank you for tuning in, and I hope you're also going to watch a couple of other episodes from our digital studio from Edge Summit 2024. Thank you very much, and see you soon.